Okay, now I want to describe the overhand recovery part of the freestyle stroke or front crawl. And I'm going to teach you the classic side because there's Olympic champions that have their way of doing it, but I'm going to talk about the majority of the cases, and I call that the classic high elbow phase. When your hand finishes the pull, ideally it's down by your thigh here. What will happen is your hand is slightly facing your body, in this case, this position here. At this point, your elbow is going to create a very high position, so it's the point of the elbow is pointing up to the sky or the ceiling if you're an indoor pool. And this allows us to have a very relaxed forearm. That's part of the philosophy and science behind it. You really want to think about minimizing the distance from your thigh into the extension to start the underwater catch phase. The distance from here to here is much less and requires less effort as if you're to do a straight arm pull. Again, there are people and Olympic champions, Michael Klim, Janet Evans, Ingrid de Bruin, that have been taught this method of a straight arm, but they are one of the minorities. So when I talk about the overhand recovery, I'm going to talk about high elbow. So this point here, we've got the high elbow, okay? We have this part of the arm that's going to actually be loose. And that's part of the reason for doing it, is that you're not using any muscle control of the forearm part of your stroke. Then it goes into the extension part as it leads into finish off the arm recovery. So when the arm actually goes in, what you'll actually have is the fingertip center first, then your forearm part, and then your elbows at this position here, okay? So if we're to do the phases here, elbows up, forearm comes forward, reaches to full extension, that's when you have the body rotation. Then we have a slightly downward pull of the fingertips, forearm, and elbow. That's the order of the entry into the water here, okay? And let me just talk about the actual catch part. With that in mind, what you'll actually have, the pull will have your fingertip inside your wrist, inside your elbow. And what we mean by inside, it's going to be in this direction, okay? Again, that's the classic motion. That's how it enters the water, and then you have the pull that starts here. So what we want to avoid is lateral movement. If I start my pull in this way, my hand is outside, so it's not inside the wrist and elbow. I'll be actually pulling water this way before I start pulling correctly and going straight. So we want to avoid that lateral zigzag motion. So things to think about in the overhand recovery: we want a high elbow, relaxed forearm, reaching forward, fingertips inside the wrist, inside the elbow as it begins the underwater pull part. What we have here is the classic high elbow. You can see the elbows are pointed towards the sky. And we have the hand entry. The hand goes in, forearm, then the elbow. It comes out of the water. It's the hand, forearm, elbow comes out. So that's the conventional, very high elbow, classic style. Very good technique. Breathing on both sides to get the symmetry roll on both sides. If we relax, purpose of the high elbows. She does cup her hands, but as her hand enters the water, it's a flat wrist, so not really important how the wrist is cocked in the overhand recovery. It's what they do when the hand enters the water. It's got to be a flat wrist. You can just see the underwater catch down there. They slate. That's all very, very tapered. Catches the water, high elbow, underneath the water scoops to her thigh. Side view of the stroke. Doing the braiding, shouldn't be lifting the head too much. It should be a roll. Following the belly button as it rolls the braid on one side. So ideally what we'd like to see is 1.5 goggles out of the water as they breathe. So no head lifting, just a roll to the side to follow the roll of the body. Streamlined front crawl. Breathing on both sides, great symmetry in the roll. Even roll on both sides. You can practice that in competitions if you want to go to a breathing on one side, that's fine, but I would recommend for practices that we learn to do bilateral breathing on both sides. See, that head is a very neutral position. There's very little lifting at all. It's just a breathing to the side. No head lift. Excellent stroke.